What is the best treasure you've ever found at a thrift store?
Story 1. My family went to the county fair and my youngest son took along his favorite little toy, a stuffed duck with feet, where he put his fingers and walked along on things, making happy quacking noises. As is tradition, toys brought on outings get lost. He was sad, but at least it wasn't his favorite lovey, a stuffed sea otter. A year later, we stopped at a thrift store to look for school clothes, and he found the same toy hanging up. So of course, it came home with us. Opening the baggie, he found his initials on the tag on the toy, where I had put them a couple of years ago. It was the same toy. Story 2. When I was in college, my parents were having a yard sale and I was going through stuff in my bedroom to sell. I came across my Cabbage Patch Kids. I'd had them since childhood, but I stuffed them into a box years earlier. I decided to sell them, but started feeling nostalgic. I had about decided to keep them when my grandmother, who was visiting us from another state, spotted them in the sale pile and asked if she could buy them. Well, of course I could neither say no nor charge my grandma money for them, so I told her she could have them. She took them home and I felt kind of sad. A few years later, she went into a nursing home. One of my cousins who lived in the same state as Grandma was a big eBay reseller, basically made her living this way, and all of a sudden stuff that we recognized as having given to my grandma was going up for sale on the cousin's account. So I was following the account and lo, and behold, one day, my Cabbage Patch Kids appeared. I was pissed, but figured it wasn't worth starting a family drama. Fast forward nearly 20 years later, and I was out walking the dog when I came upon a yard sale and randomly decided to stop. There was a Cabbage Patch Kid for sale that I am 99% certain was mine. Same head mold, same hair, and the same outfit mine had last been wearing, and basically the same played with condition. But the thing that really convinced me was the ponytail holder, which had replaced the original rubber band in her ponytail. It was the kind I wore as a kid, and I definitely used it on my doll when her rubber band broke. I bought her and still have her. I wish I had thought to ask the homeowner where they'd gotten it. Story 3. A brand new high-quality suede coat for $20. What made it a real treasure is that it's somehow my dream jacket, the one I've designed 100 times in my head and thought I'd never have because leather goods are so expensive. It's the exact shade, weight, and shape that I pictured 1,000 times, but it's also a design that isn't common for leather jackets. I always figured to get one cut like that fit me so well I'd probably have to order it custom. I dreamed of that jacket long enough that I even knew it would cost me about $600 to have one made. But then, one day I was picking up some work pants at the thrift store, and it was right there. I wasn't even looking at the coats, but someone had pulled it out and draped it over the rack. Not 2 months prior, my car had been stolen with both my jackets inside, so I didn't have a coat at all, and wasn't sure how I'd be able to afford to buy one when it got cold again. I've worn that coat every day from September to May ever since. It's one of my most prized possessions. Story 4. At a small thrift store, I found a floor-length black velvet, real velvet, not velveteen, vintage Oscar de la Renta gown in perfect condition, and miraculously in my size for $10. And as if that wasn't enough, a few minutes later found a brand new pair of Yves Saint Laurent black satin pumps with original tags, $400, for a measly $2. I wasn't a designer glam gal, and had no reason to own these as I had no need for them. I socialized in a much lower tax bracket. 2 weeks later, I was hired at a job that required me to host a celebrity-packed fundraising gala where these thrift store finds served me very well. Edit to add. Wow, thank you all so much for all this love. I wish I still had the pics from that grand night, and that I still lived near that store. Mostly, I wish I could tell you all that happened at the gala. It was some night. Story 5. I paid $1 for a box of books. One was A Child's History of the Confederacy by D.H. Hill. I graduated from NC State, and our library was the D.H. Hill Library. I took the book to the library the next time I was in Raleigh and asked if they were interested in acquiring it. The director of acquisitions asked what I wanted for it. I said I was happy to donate it, just send me a contribution receipt. A few weeks later, I got a nice letter thanking me for my contribution of $1,000. Story 6. Several years ago, I was walking around the neighborhood, late Saturday afternoon. It was garage sale weekend, but I didn't look too closely at the sales because I was broke. I was just walking to get some exercise, clear my head, maybe cheer myself up. When I was just a few blocks from returning home, I found a $20 bill on the sidewalk. I looked around, but there was nobody. It wasn't even in front of a home with a sale going on. Now I was cheered up. and I stopped in at the last garage sale with my $20. It was an older couple, and they were already moving things inside, closing up shop. I browsed around and just asked, "You wouldn't have any vinyl records for sale, would you?" They looked at one another, shrugged, and led me into the house. Upstairs, in what was clearly their son's old bedroom, they pulled a box of records out of the closet. I got the distinct feeling he had died. I didn't ask, but his room looked like a shrine to the late 1980s. I paid $20 for the whole box and carried it home. That thing was an absolute goldmine of punk albums, including an original pressing of the Germs' GI, signed by Pat Smear, an original of Operation Ivy's Energy, Green Day's 39 Smooth and Kerplunk, plus a few other Lookout Records releases, and more. I sold the GI album alone for $600 and I regret it. Story 7. This is going to seem silly, but I still love it. So, my mom and I had been at the mall and I found this gorgeous rainbow scarf at the Gap. However, it was $1.50 and I wasn't willing to spend that, so I didn't buy it. Cue about 2 months later and my mom and I were at the Goodwill. Lo and behold, there is the scarf. It's in perfect condition and was only $15.99. I, of course, bought it. I've had it 8 years now and it's still in perfect condition and I wear it every time it's cold. Granted, where I live that means about 3 months a year, so maybe that's why it's still in perfect condition. Still my favorite find. Story 8. I was a broke single mom trying to furnish my first apartment. I went to a garage sale and saw an almost brand new recliner. I was admiring it knowing I couldn't afford it, just doing a little daydreaming. The woman holding the sale came over and asked if I liked it. I told her of course I loved it, but as I was a broke single mom, that wasn't happening. I thanked her for the daydream and turned to go. She asked me to wait and went inside to get her adult son. She told me that she would sell it to me for $1. I knew she could make some money, so I declined, as I knew that wasn't fair to her. She then told me that she was in the middle of a divorce, and he got half of everything she made at the sale. I left there with a recliner, a kitchen table, and a bookshelf, and I spent $3. Was the divorce story true, or was she just helping me out? Don't know, but I've made sure to always help others once I was in a better spot. Story 9. Waiting for my wife while she spent her usual hour in a value village. Looked up at a top shelf and there were several knife blocks with the usual well-abused cheap knives, but one had 2 stainless handles sticking up that I recognized. Paid $7.99 CAD for the whole shebang. Grabbed the Global GS Nakiri and GS Santoku out of the pack, and dropped the rest in a donation bin on the way out to the car. Combined total of about $220 CAD in value. Story 10. Not a store, but I used to work for a junk removal company. Most clients were just rich people who didn't want to deal with throwing out their stuff, so it wasn't uncommon to find things of value and keep them to resell or just have. I was on an estate clean out and pulling stuff out of the attic, and found a box that I decided to open it, just to see what was inside. I popped the lid and inside there was 17 small orange, very old, boxes with big blue letters said Lionel, model trains. Box full of money. I quietly put the box in the truck cab to investigate later. Once I got home, I pulled the trains out and started researching them. 2 full sets from the 1930s, all new in box. The boxes showed their age, but the trains looked like they had never been removed from the box. Most even still had their deteriorated packing materials around them. I turned to the model trains subreddit to learn more, and was immediately swamped with people trying to buy them, and one person who was wildly honest with me and told me what they thought they were worth, and not to let someone try and swindle me out of my gold mine, mentioning he wished he could afford to buy them from me. I went to a local hobby shop to learn even more and confirmed their real monetary and historical value, about $10,000 and considered to be museum quality, near mint condition, exceedingly rare. In the end, I didn't get $10K. I contacted the Redditor who had told me what they were really worth, while everyone else was offering a few $100 and offered to sell them to him. We agreed on $2,000. He and his aging father, likely passed by now, had bonded over their love of model trains since he was a kid, and had a massive layout in their basement. Last I heard from him a couple years ago, the trains are still running and well taken care of. I'm glad I gave them to someone who would truly appreciate them and enjoy them as they were intended, instead of putting behind a glass case or looking at them as only an investment to make money off of. Story 11. A ceramic charcoal BBQ, similar to Big Green Egg. I got it for $300 brand new like had never had a fire in it. The lid wouldn't shut, so it was returned to Costco, who then shipped it to Habitat for Humanity Restore. It took me all of 4 minutes to fix the lid, The hinge was over tight. I used it for a summer, realized that charcoal wasn't for my family, so I sold it on FB Marketplace for $900. I felt bad about it, so I donated a few $100 to H4H. Story 12. 26 years ago, friends of ours gave us this beautiful handmade platter as a wedding gift. It was by far the nicest thing we owned. We were super poor, and this thing sat on our table for years as a point of pride. Then our toddler daughter was suddenly tall enough to reach it, and she pulled it down to the floor, where it shattered. Totally our fault for not realizing that this was a thing that she could now do. I was seriously bummed out over the loss of the platter, so much so that I kept all of the itty-bitty smashed-up pieces. A decade or so went by, and my mom somehow found out that the Italian artist who made the platter was going to be in town giving a talk. So I went to that, and at the end, people were getting items signed. I asked her if there was any way that I could possibly replace the platter, as I'd been looking on eBay, etc., for years with no luck. She told me not a chance. They only actually made very few of that particular one, so sorry. Another 5 or so years go by, and my parents are on a trip with our kids. They stopped in at a Goodwill on their way out of town, and bam! There was my platter for $5. It has a small chip in it, but it was otherwise perfect. I still can't believe it, and I am so fucking stoked to have it back. Story 13. Paid $50 for a full set of golf clubs, including the bag at a garage sale near my house. I know nothing about golf, but my dad goes semi-regularly. It was close to his birthday, and he had recently been complaining that his old clubs were falling apart. They looked new and in good condition, and $50 seemed reasonable. When I gave them to my dad, he freaked out. Apparently the bag alone was like $800, and from what he could tell after looking them up, the set must have cost at least $2,000. They didn't appear to have ever been used before I bought them. Story 14, it wasn't the what, it was the how. I was looking through some record crates as a teenager years back. Old thrift store that was mostly knickknacks and clothes. Found a copy of Frampton Comes Alive in decent shape. $5, and it appears to be autographed. I took out my phone and looked up his signature. Yep, looks like it's authentic. Took the record to the older middle-aged man at the counter. He glances down and comments, "Frampton, looks like it's $5. I made the comment that I couldn't believe it was autographed. His response, "Frampton's autograph?" Awkward pause. Clerk makes a disgusted sound like he's holding back vomit. $2. Story 15. I have several. I love yard sailing and going to estate sales. Here's some of my finds. Craftsman Professional Series 1/2 inches drive ratchet, practically new in box. This was from the 70S/80S when their quality was top-notch. The Reche even has a grease fitting, which I've never seen before. Not working pressure washer, I ended up putting gas in it, and ran great, and I've been got the last 4 years. Not working riding lawnmower for $50, I spent another $100 to get it running good, and sold it for $450. 5,000-watt generator for $20 that wouldn't start. Replaced the starter and had a great generator. List goes on and on. Story 16. 20 years ago, a yuppie couple bought a house in my neighborhood with everything in it after the elderly owner died. They had an estate sale to clear it out. The elderly owner was one of the most important importers from China post WW2. They sold everything for fractions of a penny of what they were worth. I bought a large rosewood budded, a large porcelain foo dog, 2 rosewood planet stands, and a 4-panel screen with golden lacquer on one side, and a beautiful and detailed mother-of-pearl 3D scene on the other for $600. The screen alone is now worth $35K. Story 17. For all you motorcycle riders out there, I made the frame closer to the ground, and had a problem with the OEM kickstand being too long now. I searched eBay, Amazon, all the online merchants I could think of. Nada, not even full price. After a year or so of looking, I was about to give up. Then I heard of a free hamburger thing at a motorcycle dealer about 100 miles away from where I lived. We made the trip over for our free hamburger. After scarfing down my lunch, I started browsing the store and made it to the clearance table. Most of the items were ordered for a specific project someone had but never picked it up. There was a lot of stuff piled on the table. I dug through it and found a kickstand for my bike. As I was reading the label, it was for my bike. That had been lowered 2 inches. Wow. I grabbed that thing up, looked the sale sign, price 1-2 off, but today was 75% off the sale price. So it listed for just under $100 in the book. But I paid $7 for the exact kickstand that I needed but couldn't find. Only thing that would have made it better was if I would have found the $7 in the parking lot. Story. 18 years ago, a woman posted a telescope ad on a bulletin board. Her dad was a snowbird and one year just called her up and said, "I'm not coming back this year. Sell my house and everything in it." I went to check out the telescope during her garage sale, and she said she had researched everything about it, talked to him about it, and she wanted $300 for it. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember saying something that indicated I would go a little higher, but she said no. She would be happy with $300. It's an older model, but the telescope new would be about $2,500, and it had a $700 eyepiece in the box. Story 19. While I was away in the Army, sometime around 2002, my mom, now an empty nester, moved into a little one-over-one apartment, with not much room for things and stuff, so she downsized. Only she didn't tell me she was moving, which created small admin issues with the Army. And she gave away a bunch of Christmas decorations I was hoping to inherit when this day came. Fast forward to Christmas time 2023, and I'm casually perusing a thrift store several miles away from anywhere she might have donated things. And there I find one of the very distinct Christmas items from our old collection. So naturally, I snatched it up. It's the only one of our Christmas items I can find, but it was the complete kit / all its parts were there, so it was just right, just me.